Jack Morrison stood in the center of the huge alien courtroom. His hands were behind his back and his face showed no fear. Around him, creatures from across the galaxy watched and waited. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few floated in the air without any legs at all. The room was so big that Jack could not see the far walls. Strange lights came from everywhere, but they cast no shadows. The air tasted like metal and something sweet that made his nose burn. This was the Galactic Council chamber, and today they would decide what happened to Earth. High Arbitrator Banish rose from his floating chair. He was tall and thin, with skin that changed colors like oil on water. His voice came through the translator in Jack's ear, cold and final. "The human species stands accused of many crimes against galactic peace," Banish said. "You expand too fast. You fight too much. You do not follow the rules we have made to keep order in the galaxy." Jack wanted to speak, but Dr. Lisa Martinez stepped forward instead. She was Earth's best diplomat, a small woman with gray hair who had spent 10 years trying to make friends with alien races. Her voice was calm and steady. "Honored Council, humans have given much to the galaxy. Our doctors saved millions on Kepler Prime when the plague hit. Our engineers built the new trade stations that everyone uses. Our soldiers fought beside yours to stop the pirates in the Outer Rim." A creature that looked like a walking tree spoke next. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Yes, humans help sometimes, but you also cause problems. You ask too many questions. You want to go to places that should be left alone. You make weapons when we tell you to make tools." Lisa tried again. "Every young race makes mistakes. Give us time to learn your ways. We want to be part of the galactic family." But Jack could see it was no use. The aliens had already made up their minds. They were afraid of humans, and fear made them want to push Earth away. Banish held up his hand for silence. "We have spent many days talking about this. The vote is final. Earth will be cut off from the galaxy. No ships will go to your system. No messages will reach you. You will stay in your small corner of space until you learn to be peaceful." "For how long?" Jack asked, speaking for the first time. "Until we decide you are safe to be around other races. This could be 10 years. This could be 1,000 years. Time will tell." Jack felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept it hidden. Around the room, alien faces watched him with what might have been pity or relief. None of them looked sorry about what they were doing. "You think this will stop us?" Jack said quietly. "You think without your help, humans will give up and fade away?" "We think you will learn wisdom," replied a crystal being whose voice rang like bells. "All young races must go through this teaching. Some survive and become better. Others do not." Lisa stepped close to Jack and whispered in his ear, "Don't make this worse. We still have a chance to change their minds later." But Jack knew better. He had seen this kind of fear before in the eyes of bullies who thought they were doing the right thing. These aliens were not evil, but they were scared. And scared people rarely change their minds easily. "We don't need your permission to reach for the stars," Jack said, his voice carrying across the huge room. "Humans have always found a way to survive. We've lived through ice ages and wars and plagues. We've built cities on the bottom of oceans and on top of mountains. You think cutting us off from your trade routes will break us?" Banish's skin shifted to deep red. "Your pride is exactly why you must be isolated. You think you are special. You think you are better than races that have traveled space for millions of years." "No," Jack said. "We think we're different. And maybe that scares you more than you want to admit." The trial was over. Energy barriers began to form around Jack and Lisa, preparing to send them back to Earth. As the light grew brighter, Jack heard Banish speak one last time. "When your people are ready to join the galaxy as peaceful members, we will welcome you back. Until then, Earth stands alone." The light flashed, and suddenly Jack was back on his ship. Earth hung in the view screen, ahead blue and white and beautiful. Around the solar system, he could see the barrier forming. It looked like a soap bubble made of stars, cutting Earth off from the rest of the galaxy. Lisa slumped in her chair. 50 years of work, gone. Everything we built with the other races, finished. Jack walked to the controls and opened a channel. To Earth. President Hayes appeared on the screen, her face worried. Commander Morrison, what's the verdict? We're on our own, Madam President. The galaxy has decided we're too dangerous to play with the other kids. President Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and Jack saw something in her eyes that made his heart lift. Well then, she said. I guess it's time to show them what humans can really do when nobody's watching. Jack smiled back. The galaxy thought they had solved the human problem by locking Earth away. They had no idea they had just given humanity the greatest gift possible, the freedom to become something completely new. 5 years had passed since the galaxy locked Earth away. Colonel Ben Parker floated in his spacesuit, watching hundreds of workers build something that had never been seen before. Around Mars, metal frameworks stretched for miles in every direction. Ships that looked nothing like the smooth alien designs moved between the construction sites like busy ants. Ben spoke into his radio. Control, this is Parker. The new drive section is ready for testing. The voice that answered him belonged to Dr. Ryan Cole, the man who had made the impossible happen. Copy that, Ben. Start the sequence when you're ready. Ben had known Ryan since college. Back then, Ryan was the kind of student who asked questions that made professors uncomfortable. Now he was the kind of scientist who found answers that should not have been possible. The test ship was small, no bigger than a city bus. But inside its metal shell was technology that broke every rule the aliens had taught humanity about space travel. Ryan called it a fold drive, though he admitted the name was not very good. The aliens use their ships like cars on a highway. Ryan had explained to Ben months ago. They go fast, but they still have to follow the road. We're going to dig tunnels under the road and come out wherever we want. Ben watched as the test ship's engines came to life. Instead of the bright blue flame of normal rocket engines, this ship glowed with a soft white light that seemed to bend the space around it. The ship moved forward slowly at first, then faster, then it vanished. Ben's radio crackled. Parker, do you see it? Ben looked around the empty space where the ship had been. Negative, Control. It's gone. Check your long-range sensors. Ben switched to the wide area scanner and nearly dropped his tablet. The test ship was sitting next to Jupiter, over 400 million miles away. As he watched, it blinked out again and reappeared right in front of him. How long was I gone? Asked the test pilot over the radio. Her name was Helen Brooks, and she was either very brave or completely crazy. About 30 seconds, Ben replied. It felt like no time at all. The space around me just folded up like paper and then unfolded somewhere else. Ryan's excited voice filled the radio channel. We did it. We actually did it. Ben had to agree. They had built a faster-than-light drive using nothing but human science and spare parts from alien ships they had studied during their brief time in the galaxy. It should not have worked, but it did. Over the next months, Ben watched humanity change in ways he had never imagined. The fold drives were just the beginning. Human engineers were taking alien technology and using it in ways the aliens had never thought of. Captain Steve Carter showed Ben through the shipyard where they were building humanity's new fleet. The ships looked rough compared to the elegant, alien designs, but they were built to last. The aliens make their ships like expensive watches, Steve explained as they walked past a half-finished cruiser. Pretty to look at, but if one part breaks, the whole thing stops working. Our ships are more like tractors. They might not be beautiful, but they'll keep running no matter what hits them. Ben touched the hull of the ship they were passing. It was made of layered metal and ceramic, with repair systems built into every section. If part of the ship was damaged, other parts would automatically fix it or work around the problem. The real breakthrough came when Dr. Kate Sullivan figured out how to make artificial wormholes. Ben remembered the day she called him to her laboratory, her voice shaking with excitement. Ben, you have to see this, she had said. Her lab was a mess of cables and computers. In the center was a metal ring about 10 feet across. Kate threw a switch and the ring began to glow. The air inside it shimmered like heat waves over hot pavement. Watch this, Kate said. She picked up a red ball and tossed it through the ring. The ball vanished. Ben looked around the room. Where did it go? Kate pointed to a corner of the lab where another ring sat. much smaller than the first. The red ball rolled out of it and across the floor. I made a tunnel through space, Kate said. Not through normal space, but through the layer underneath. The aliens never figured this out because they were too scared to try it. They thought it was too dangerous. Is it dangerous? Ben asked. Kate grinned. Probably. But when has that ever stopped humans from doing something cool? The first colony ship left Earth 6 months later. Ben was not on it, but Helen Brooks was. She had volunteered to command the mission to the nearest star system outside the alien barrier. The ship they built for her looked like no vessel that had ever flown. It was part spaceship, part factory, and part city. If something went wrong, the colonists could build whatever they needed to fix it. If they found a good planet, they could build a whole civilization from the ship's resources. Ben watched the launch from Mars. The colony ship, named Independence, folded space around itself and disappeared into the dark between stars. A message came back 3 days later. This is Captain Brooks reporting from the Haven system. We made it. The planet's a little rough, but nothing we can't handle. Starting construction of the first human city beyond Earth. See you in the stars. President Hayes called Ben to her office the next week. She looked tired but happy. Colonel Parker, I want you to command our next expansion fleet. 10 ships. 3,000 people. Your job is to find us more worlds to call home. Ben thought about the alien council that had locked Earth away. They believed humans would stay trapped in their small corner of space, growing weak and giving up their dreams of the stars. When do we leave, Madam President? Next month. The galaxy thinks they've caged us, Ben. Time to show them that humans don't stay in cages. Ben nodded. In 5 short years, humanity had gone from a junior member of the galactic community to something entirely new. They had their own technology, their own ships, and their own plans for the future. The aliens had meant the isolation to be a punishment. Instead, they had given humanity the greatest gift possible, the chance to grow up without anyone telling them what they could or could not do. Ben looked out at the busy shipyards around Mars and smiled. The real adventure was just beginning. 20 years after the galaxy had locked them away, Commander Luke Adams stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at something that should not have existed. The planet below him was green and blue, with white clouds drifting across its surface. It looked almost exactly like Earth, except it was 300 light-years away from home. This makes 50 colonies, sir, said his second officer, Lieutenant Danny White. Should we call it New Earth? Luke shook his head. The people down there get to name their own world. That's the rule. It was a good rule, Luke thought. Every Amor human colony was different because every group of colonists was different. Some built cities in the trees. Others dug their homes into mountainsides. A few had even learned to live underwater, using breathing gear that Dr. Amy Foster's team had developed. Amy had made something the aliens said was impossible. She had found a way to change human bodies temporarily, so people could live on almost any kind of world. The changes were not permanent like alien gene fixing. Humans could adapt to a new place, then change back if they wanted to go somewhere else. Luke had tried it himself on a world where the air was too thick to breathe normally. For 6 months, his lungs had worked differently, processing the heavy atmosphere like it was normal air. When he left, his body changed back to normal within a few weeks. Sir, we're getting a signal from the Forge Worlds, Danny said. Luke smiled. The Forge Worlds were humanity's greatest success story. Captain Peter Grant had taken his fleet to a dead solar system where nothing lived and nothing grew. The aliens would have passed it by as worthless. Peter and his people had turned it into humanity's biggest industrial center. Put him on screen, Luke said. Peter's face appeared dirty and smiling. Behind him, Luke could see the inside of a massive factory built into an asteroid. Sparks flew as robots and humans worked together to build something large and complex. Luke, good to see you. How's the colony business? Can't complain. 50 worlds and counting. What are you building back there? Peter's smile grew wider. Something special. We're taking apart the dead planets in this system and turning them into ships. Not little ships like we used to make, but big ones. City-sized ships that can carry 1 million people each. Luke whistled softly. What do you need ships that big for? There's a lot of empty space out here and we're running out of good planets close to home. Time to start thinking bigger. The call ended, but Luke kept thinking about Peter's words. Humanity was not just surviving in exile, they were growing stronger. Every year, human colonies spread farther from Earth. Every year, human technology got better and stranger. On the farming world called New Texas, Governor Sam Mitchell had solved the food problem in a way that amazed even other humans. His people had mixed Earth crops with alien plants to create new kinds of food that could grow anywhere. Luke had visited New Texas the year before. He remembered walking through fields of grain that was blue instead of gold, but tasted better than anything he had ever eaten. Sam had explained how they did it. The aliens keep their plant types separate, Sam had said, picking an apple that was the size of a watermelon. They think mixing different species is messy and unpredictable. But messy and unpredictable is what humans do best. The crops from New Texas now fed human colonies across dozens of worlds. Plants that could grow in sand, in snow, in water, or even in the dim light of distant suns. The aliens had spent millions of years learning to change themselves to fit different worlds. Humans had learned to change the worlds to fit them. But the real treasure had come from an unexpected place. Lieutenant Commander Nina Parker had found it while exploring a system the aliens had marked as dead and useless. Luke remembered the day Nina's report had reached Earth. She had found ruins on a planet that orbited a dying star. Not recent ruins, but ancient ones. Buildings and machines left behind by a race that had died out long before the current aliens had ever learned to fly. "Sir, you need to see this," Nina had said in her transmission. "These aren't just old buildings. There are machines here that still work, computers with information about how space and time really function. And sir, I think these people knew about humans. The Vault Worlds, as they came to be called, held secrets that changed everything. The ancient race had left behind technology that was far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. More importantly, they had left behind warnings." Luke had read the translated records himself. The ancient people had written about a cycle that repeated throughout galactic history. Whenever a race became too creative or too unpredictable, the top established powers would find reasons to exile them or destroy them. It had happened dozens of times before. The record suggested that the galaxy was not growing and improving as the current aliens believed. Instead, it was slowly becoming more and more controlled, more and more afraid of change. The ancient race had seen it happening and had tried to warn future generations. But there was something else in the records, something that made Luke's hands shake when he read it. The ancient race had written about a species that would come from a small blue world, a species that would refuse to follow the pattern of control and fear. They had known about humans millions of years before Earth had even existed. Nina's team had found dozens of vault worlds scattered across the galaxy. Each one contained more technology and more warnings. The aliens who ruled the galaxy today were not evil, but they were trapped in a system that made them afraid of anything new or different. Luke looked back at the planet below his ship. In a few years, it would be home to thousands of humans. They would build cities and farms, schools and factories. They would have children who had never seen Earth but who carried humanity's spirit of curiosity and stubborn refusal to accept limits. "Danny, send a message to Earth," Luke said. "Tell them we've established Colony 51. Tell them everything is going according to plan." But Luke knew the truth. There was no plan, at least not the kind the aliens would understand. Humans were not following some careful strategy to conquer the galaxy. They were just doing what they had always done: exploring, learning, adapting, and refusing to be told what was impossible. The aliens had locked Earth away to keep humanity from causing trouble. But trouble, Luke thought with a smile, was exactly what the galaxy needed. The ancient records made that clear. Without someone willing to push boundaries and ask uncomfortable questions, the galaxy would continue its slow slide into stagnation and fear. Luke's radio crackled. "Sir, we're getting reports from 5 more survey teams. They've all found suitable planets." "Tell them to start the colonization process," Luke said. "And Danny, make sure they know to keep looking for more vault worlds. We're going to need all the ancient knowledge we can find." The galaxy thought it had solved the human problem. Luke knew better. Humanity was not a problem to be solved. They were a force of nature, and they were just getting started. Admiral Greg Turner watched the alien ships through his view screen and tried not to laugh. 35 years had passed since the galaxy had locked Earth away, and now they were finally paying attention to what humans had been doing with their time. The Zephyrian scout fleet looked exactly like the ships Greg remembered from the old days. Sleek, beautiful, and built for showing off rather than fighting. Their formation was perfect, their energy signatures were clean, and they moved with the kind of precision that impressed other aliens. Greg's ships looked like they had been built in a junkyard by people who did not care what anyone else thought, which Greg admitted to himself was pretty much exactly what had happened. "Admiral, the lead Zephyrian ship is trying to communicate with us," reported Captain Julie Adams from the bridge of the UEF Liberty. "They're demanding to know who gave us permission to be in this sector." Greg smiled. "Tell them we gave ourselves permission, then invite them to come aboard for a chat." The Zephyrian commander who materialized in the Liberty's teleporter bay was exactly what Greg expected. Tall, elegant, with skin that shifted colors to show his emotions. Right now, those colors were showing confusion and anger. "I am Fleet Commander Zarthun of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien announced. "You are in violation of galactic law. Humans are restricted to their home system." Greg extended his hand in the old human gesture of greeting. "Admiral Greg Turner, United Earth Fleet. Nice to meet you. Would you like some coffee?" The alien's skin flashed red. "This is not a social visit. Your species is quarantined. You should not be able to travel this far from your star." "Well, that's funny," Greg said, pouring himself a cup of coffee from the machine his crew had installed on the bridge. "Because here we are. Julie, how many human colonies are we up to now?" 217, sir," Julie answered, "with about 40 million people living on them." The alien commander stared at them. "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such expansion." Greg sipped his coffee and studied the Zephyrian. The poor creature really believed what he was saying. The aliens had been so sure that their quarantine would work that they had stopped paying attention to what humans were actually doing. "Commander, would you like me to show you something interesting?" Greg asked. Before the alien could answer, Greg nodded to his crew. The Liberty's engines came to life, but not in any way the Zephyrian would recognize. The ship did not move forward or backward. Instead, it seemed to twist, like a piece of paper being folded in half. The view screen showed stars wheeling past, at impossible speeds. Then everything stopped and they were somewhere else entirely. "Welcome to the Haven system," Greg said. "First human colony outside the quarantine zone. Population about 3 million now." The Zephyrian commander looked at the planet below them, covered with the lights of human cities. His skin had gone pale white, which Greg knew meant shock. "How?" the alien whispered. "We learned things," Greg said simply. "Things your people never thought to look for because you were too busy following the rules." Dr. Rebecca Moore chose that moment to walk onto the bridge. She was carrying a device that looked like it had been built from spare parts and children's toys, which, Greg remembered, it basically had been. "Admiral, the new Genesis drive is ready for testing," Rebecca said. Then she noticed the alien visitor. "Oh, hello. Are you here to see the demonstration too?" The Zephyrian stared at the device in Rebecca's hands. "What is that?" "Power source," Rebecca said cheerfully. "It's about 1,000 times more efficient than anything your people use, and it runs on principles that your scientists say are impossible." She pressed a button on the device. The lights in the room grew brighter, but that was not the impressive part. What impressed the alien was that every piece of electronic equipment on the ship suddenly began running faster and more smoothly. "That little thing is powering your entire vessel?" the commander asked. "Oh no," Rebecca laughed. "This is just running the coffee machine and the lights. The main drives are much bigger." Greg watched the alien's face change colors rapidly as he processed this information. The Zephyrian Empire's most advanced ships needed engines the size of buildings to power their faster-than-light travel. Humans had apparently found a way to do the same thing with devices they could carry in their pockets. I need to report this to the council, the commander said. Feel free, Greg replied. But while you're doing that, let me show you something else. He led the alien to the ship's observation deck. Through the transparent walls, the Zephyrian could see human ships moving between the planets of the Haven system. But these were not normal cargo runs or patrol flights. Greg watched the alien's eyes grow wide as he realized what he was seeing. Human ships were diving into the local sun, emerging unharmed moments later. Others were dancing around black holes, using the gravitational fields like playgrounds. Some were simply disappearing and reappearing in different locations without any visible means of travel. Your ships, the commander said slowly. They do not follow the laws of physics. They follow laws, Greg said, just not the ones your people know about. Captain Danny Roberts joined them on the observation deck. He was young for a starship captain, barely 30 years old, but he commanded one of humanity's most advanced vessels. Admiral, the Prometheus is ready to show our guests the new defensive systems, Danny reported. Defensive systems? The Zephyrian asked. Danny grinned. Want to try to attack my ship? The alien commander looked confused. Attack? I do not understand. Fire your weapons at the Prometheus, Greg explained. Don't worry, you won't hurt anyone. The Zephyrian was clearly uncomfortable with the idea, but curiosity won over caution. He contacted his own ship and gave orders to target the human vessel with their lightest weapons. Greg watched through the view screen as bright energy beams lanced out from the Zephyrian ships. The beams struck the Prometheus and simply stopped. Not absorbed, not deflected, but stopped, hanging in space like frozen lightning. What did you do? The commander whispered. We made friends with the universe, Danny said. Turns out, if you ask nicely, reality is pretty flexible about what's possible and what isn't. The frozen energy beams suddenly reversed course, flying back to the Zephyrian ships. They struck harmlessly against the hulls, but the message was clear. Human defenses could not only stop attacks, they could send them back. Greg knew the alien was thinking about what this meant for galactic politics. For millions of years, the various alien races had maintained peace through a careful balance of military power. Everyone knew who could defeat whom, and everyone played by the same rules. But humans had apparently thrown out the rulebook entirely. Commander Zarthun, Greg said, I want you to take a message back to your council. Humanity appreciates the quarantine. It gave us time to grow up without interference. But we're adults now, and we don't need anyone's permission to exist in this galaxy. The alien's skin flickered through several colors at once. The council will never accept this. You are too dangerous, too unpredictable. That's their choice, Greg replied. But they should understand something. We're not angry about the exile. We're grateful for it. You gave us the freedom to become something new. Dr. Tony Mitchell arrived on the bridge carrying a data pad filled with information from the Vault worlds. Admiral, I've finished translating the latest ancient records. You're going to want to see this. Greg looked at the information on the pad and nodded slowly. The ancient race's warnings were becoming clearer all the time. The current galactic civilization was trapped in a cycle of fear and control that had been going on for millions of years. Commander, Greg said to the Zephyrian, your people aren't evil, but you're part of a system that's slowly strangling the galaxy. Every time someone tries something new, you shut them down. Every time a race shows promise, you isolate them or destroy them. The alien commander's skin showed deep purple, which Greg knew meant confusion and fear. We maintain order, the commander protested. Without structure, there would be chaos. Maybe, Greg said. But without chaos, there's no growth, no progress, no hope. Greg walked to the ship's communications console and opened a channel to Earth. This is Admiral Turner reporting to Fleet Command. The Zephyrians know about our expansion. Recommend we begin Phase 2 of the long-term plan. The voice that answered belonged to President Alice Kent, who had taken over from President Hayes 5 years earlier. Copy that, Admiral. Phase 2 is authorized. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity has really been up to. Greg closed the channel and turned back to the alien commander. You wanted to know how we got so far from home? The truth is, we never left home. We just made home bigger. 50 years after the galaxy had tried to lock them away, Fleet Admiral Chris Walker stood before the assembled representatives of every major alien civilization. The meeting was being held on New Geneva, a human world that existed in 7 dimensions. At the same time, the aliens found this deeply disturbing. Chris found it convenient for parking lots. The Galactic Council chamber had been rebuilt to accommodate the new reality. Where once only alien representatives had sat in judgment, now humans occupied half the seats. But these were not the same humans who had been exiled decades ago. These were people who had grown up free from alien expectations and limitations. Captain Julie Adams watched from her position near the wall. Her uniform bore the insignia of the Terminus Station, humanity's outpost built inside a collapsing star. The station used the star's death to power research into things that most civilizations considered impossible. Julie looked perfectly normal, but Chris knew she could survive in the vacuum of space without a suit, and had once arm-wrestled a black hole into a more convenient orbit. High Arbitrator Velnash, the same being who had pronounced humanity's exile 50 years ago, rose slowly from his chair. His skin, which had once changed colors to show emotion, was now a constant pale gray. Chris thought he looked tired. Honored representatives, Velnash began. We gather today to address a situation that has grown beyond our ability to ignore. The human species has expanded far beyond their designated boundaries. They have established colonies in forbidden sectors. They have developed technologies that violate known physical laws. Most concerning, they have made contact with other species without permission from this council. Major Alex Turner, representing humanity's frontier forces, smiled at that last comment. His job was to protect human colonies from hostile aliens, but in 50 years of expansion, humans had only encountered 3 truly hostile species. All 3 had quickly decided that attacking humans was bad for their health. President Laura Davis stood to address the council. She was the great-granddaughter of the president who had first welcomed humanity into the galaxy, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who did not need anyone else's approval to exist. Honored Arbitrator, Laura said, humanity thanks the council for this opportunity to speak. We also thank the council for the quarantine that allowed us to develop without interference. A ripple of confusion went through the alien representatives. They had expected anger, demands for apologies, threats of revenge. Gratitude was not something they had prepared for. We understand your concerns, Laura continued. Humans have changed since you last saw us. We have grown in ways that may seem frightening to those who value stability above all else. But we come here today not as conquerors or troublemakers, but as neighbors who want to share what we have learned. Dr. Jake Sullivan stepped forward, carrying a device that looked like a metallic flower. Chris had seen the demonstrations of Sullivan's invention, and even he found them hard to believe. This is an infinity drive, Sullivan explained to the assembled aliens. It allows instant travel between any 2 points in the universe regardless of distance. It requires no exotic fuel, no massive energy expenditure, and no complicated navigation systems. Anyone can use it. The crystal being representative from the Zarathi Collective spoke in its bell-like voice. Surely there are restrictions. Licensing, requirements, safety protocols? Sullivan shook his head. None at all. We're giving this technology freely to any species that wants it. No conditions, no limitations, no control systems. The room erupted in alarmed voices speaking in dozens of languages. Chris understood their fear. For millions of years, the galactic powers had maintained control by limiting who could travel where and when. If anyone could go anywhere instantly, the old system would collapse overnight. Velnash raised his hand for silence. The Council cannot allow unlimited travel technology to spread without proper oversight. The chaos would be immeasurable. You're probably right, Chris admitted. The galaxy will become a much more chaotic place if everyone has access to unlimited travel and unlimited energy. Species will mix in ways they never have before. New ideas will spread faster than you can control them. Young races will gain access to parts of the galaxy you've kept hidden from them. Exactly, exclaimed a representative from the Altarian. Empire. It would be the end of civilized order. It would be the beginning of something new, Laura replied calmly. The ancient records we've discovered in the Vault Worlds tell a story you don't want to hear. This galaxy has been stagnating for millions of years. Every time a species shows creativity or unpredictability, they're eliminated or exiled. Every time someone develops new technology, it's restricted and controlled. Dr. Tony Mitchell, humanity's leading expert on ancient alien civilizations, activated a holographic display. The images showed the rise and fall of dozens of galactic civilizations over millions of years. The pattern repeats itself, Tony explained. A young, energetic species develops faster than light travel. They're welcomed into the galactic community. They contribute new ideas and technologies. Then, when they become too innovative or too independent, they're declared a threat and removed from the equation. The hologram showed the familiar cycle: integration, contribution, innovation, fear, exile, extinction. It had happened over and over again, always justified as necessary for galactic stability. The current galactic civilization isn't ancient wisdom, Tony continued. It's the end result of millions of years of removing anyone who might cause change. You've created a galaxy of followers with no one left to follow. Velnash's skin flickered with the first colors Chris had seen from him all day. These accusations are serious. Do you have proof of these claims? Captain Mark Davis, great-grandson of President Davis, stepped forward. He commanded humanity's deep space exploration fleet, the ships that had ventured farther from home than any human had ever gone. We have more than proof, Mark said. We have contact. The alien representatives fell silent. Contact with whom? While you've been arguing about human expansion, Mark explained, we've been exploring beyond the galactic rim. We found them out there in the empty space between galaxies. All the species you've exiled over the millennia. They're still alive, still growing, still learning. And they've been waiting. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Every species they had removed from the galaxy over millions of years was still out there. All of them together, beyond the reach of galactic control. They call themselves the Free Nations, Mark continued. Thousands of species who chose growth over safety, exploration over stagnation. They've been building something out there in the dark, something bigger than anything this galaxy has ever imagined. Laura stepped forward again. We are offering the Council a choice. You can continue the old way, trying to control every aspect of galactic life until there's nothing left but fear and empty rules, or you can accept change, embrace chaos and help build something better. And if we refuse? Velnash asked. Chris smiled. Then we'll wish you well and continue building the future without you. The Free Nations have already offered humanity full membership. We have options now. The silence in the chamber stretched for long minutes. Chris could see the alien representatives struggling with a choice they had never expected to face. For millions of years, they had been the ones making demands, setting limits, controlling the conversation. Now they were being asked to choose between relevance and obsolescence. Finally, the Zarathi representative spoke. What exactly are you proposing? A new galaxy, Laura said. One where growth is valued over stability, where innovation is celebrated instead of feared, where young species are encouraged to reach their potential instead of being locked away when they become inconvenient. The technology sharing is just the beginning, Sullivan added. We want to open the Vault Worlds to joint research. We want to establish trade with the Free Nations. We want to start asking the questions that haven't been asked for millions of years. Velnash looked older than his years. And if this new approach leads to disaster? If the galaxy tears itself apart in chaos and war? Then at least it will be an interesting disaster, Chris replied. Better to fail while trying something. Great than to succeed at slow decline into nothing. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Chris had expected. Nearly half the Council chose to maintain the old ways, to keep humanity restricted and contained. But the other half, perhaps inspired by the promise of something new or simply tired of endless stagnation, voted for change. The barriers around The Sol system came down not with fanfare or ceremony, but with a simple mechanical click as ancient machines finally shut themselves off. The galaxy was open again, but this time it was open to everyone. As the council meeting ended and representatives began to scatter to their homeworlds, Chris found himself standing beside Velnash. The old alien looked exhausted but somehow relieved. "You realize," Velnash said, "that everything will change now. The galaxy we've known for millions of years will cease to exist." "Everything was already changing," Chris replied. "You just couldn't see it because you were too busy trying to stop it." Velnash considered this.